So today you've just seen me set up the DD super light tarp with the DD under blanket, and as you can see I've got a 3x3 tarp over the top of that because I'm actually camping in this tonight. But let me walk you through what I bought and what I recommend you get if you're new to hammock camping like I am. So the first thing is getting yourself a suspension system so you can rig your hammock up to the trees. There are hammocks, I mean you could technically tie these round the tree and use this soft shackle carabiner to hold it in place, but I definitely recommend getting yourself a pair of these tree huggers. These are from DD as well. These are the extra long ones. I wouldn't really recommend these. Pretty much everywhere I've been and tried to set up my tarp in the UK, I haven't had the space to use these extra long ones anyway, so I'm finding I'm wrapping them around the tree twice and they're still too long, to be honest. I'd rather be about here. And then all I've got running through the end here is two carabiners. I did have just some cheap ones I tried to put on there. As soon as I put my weight on them, they bent out. So get yourself good carabiners just so they stay in. DD do make them as well, but they're expensive. So all I've got is two locking carabiners that you can turn this little lock over to make sure they don't come loose in the night, because these carabiners are pretty much essentially supporting your weight while you're in the hammock. So what I've got here is the DD Whoopee suspension system, which is a simple way for you to be able to adjust the height of your hammock while you're setting it up. It does come with the ultralight tarp as standard, but if you get one of the other tarps and it doesn't have this Whoopee suspension system, I definitely recommend looking into it. So this is the soft shackle carabiner that I was talking about that links to your carabiners on your tree huggers, and then it runs down here and it comes to this. This is the reason to get the Whoopee suspension system. So it has this, which is essentially kind of like a Chinese finger trap. Shout out to Adventurers Made for giving me that terminology in his review. Watched his review a lot of times before I bought one of these. So essentially what you get is this that locks the rope in place, and then it has a rope that hangs down, and when you pull this way, this top rope goes through that and lifts your hammock up, and then when you hold that and pull this down, it drops your hammock. And all you need to do once you've adjusted either pulling this way or pulling that way is to then run your fingers down this locking system just to keep it in place, and you keep this bead just on top of it here just to make sure it doesn't come undone. But if you run your fingers down it once you've set the height you want, it'll stay in place anyway. It's also got a bit of hang here which you can hang off and tuck in there just to give yourself a couple more drip points. If your tarp can't reach over the end of your hammock, then yeah, I'd hang as many little loops and things off your line as you can, just so the water doesn't get down into your hammock. And then follow them down from there. When you lock that off, I've got this, it's called a snake. I can't think of the actual term for it. I just always call it a snake. I think it's just called a hammock cover if you look it up. This is DD as well. This is only about £8, £9, and what it does is it comes over the top of your hammock like this, so if it rains or you want to pack your hammock away, you can quickly get it covered. It's also pretty useful if you want to put your hammock up early, keep that over the top of it, and then when you're ready to use it, undo it. It's got little toggles at both sides which you can tighten and loosen, so that's really handy to have just to transport your hammock, keep it in good shape and keep it covered from the rain. So as I mentioned before, the hammock itself is a DD super light, which is obviously smaller to pack, easier to transport and a lot lighter. And then underneath it I've got the DD under blanket, so that just hooks on. You just use two carabiners to come up this end, and then you've got some that'll hook onto these points along the hammock. So there's 4 points here that you can just hook them on, and what this does is it hangs loose below your hammock and it creates this warm pocket of air, and it kind of traps all your body heat, because most of your body heat is lost when you're hammocking through your butt and your legs and your back. So if you're sleeping on your back, what this will do is it'll trap all the hot air as it comes out from your body, and it'll cocoon it into this blanket. So you just cinch up the top. There's little toggles here on both ends, and there's one on either side, and you just cinch those in to create this little kind of vacuum that traps all the heat in your body. And then what I'm using to sleep in here then is an army bag, the down British Army bag from an army surplus. It's about £30, well worth it, keeps you really warm, and that's pretty much my setup for hammocking. And then as you can see behind me here, I've got a DD 3x3 tarp. Just at the moment it's flying out over the top, so it's just fed over a ridge line and then pegged out on the four corners. What I'll do tonight, because it looks like it's going to rain, when it starts raining and when I'm going to go to sleep, I'm going to stop flying these ends here and I'm going to just peg these straight into the ground, which will bring my A-frame down into quite a sharp point, and it'll give me a little bit more protection on the sides from the rain while I'm sleeping, and it'll make it a little bit more cozy in there. So hopefully that's helpful if you're thinking about getting into hammocking. I know when I was looking into it there were so many options and so many different things you could buy. I was confused as to what I actually needed to start. So I think the only things you really need is a half decent hammock that can hold your weight, an under blanket to stop the heat from going from underneath, a tarp to fly over the top of you, especially if it's like now autumn or coming into winter time, and a decent sleeping bag, maybe a pillow. If you buy the DD front line, it has got an extra compartment underneath that this Superlight hasn't got, for you to slide an inflatable air mat in to give you an extra bit of warmth as well. But obviously if you are looking for something really light because you're trail hiking or backpacking or out for any length of time, then I definitely recommend this Superlight. So hopefully that helped. If you've got any tips on hammock camping, things to keep you warm, things to make your setup easier, then comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.